Hi, I'm JH, and in this video I'll be discussing about the 2022 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, the fourth round of the 2022 Formula 1 season. Please note that everything I said is based on facts and of course my own opinion. So, without further ado, let's start the video. Yes, after a break week, Formula 1 is finally back. This time in Imola for the fourth round of the season. In this round, the grid order will be decided with a sprint race, which had some changes compared to last year. This time, the first 8 drivers to finish the sprint gets the points. The weather condition had been abysmal during most of the weekend, especially during the practice sessions, with Bottas and Norris spinning due to wet track, resulting in 2 red flags. As for the quali session, well, there is a total of 5 red flags, which by the way is a record for most red flags during quali session. Moving on, the chaotic quali session ended up with Max in first, Charles in second, and Lando in third. The sprint session then started, and despite Charles leading for the early parts, Max managed to get the best of him and finishing first on sprint, followed by Charles and Sergio. Now let's get into their race performance. I guess they managed to fix their reliability issue that they had during the first few rounds. All in all, a perfect finish for the Red Bull team. Got the pole, 1-2 finish, and the fastest lap. Verstappen had a great start and looks to be very comfortable in front, dominating the weekend overall. Great performance by the Dutch. Sergio also did well. He made an error that almost cost him during the race, but recovered well and managed to help Charles as well as getting P2. Perfect weekend and fantastic result for Red Bulls. It's kinda complicated for this team. I mean, they look pretty good in quali and sprint, but then at the first lap of the race, Ricciardo bumped into Sainz and ended up coming into the pit early. Since then, for most of the race, he has been running last or close to last. Tough luck for him. Lando on the other hand had an excellent race. Not much of an action with him running comfortably in third or fourth most of the time. He ended up getting podium again in Italy. Overall, I'd be quite happy with the result if I'm a McLaren fan. That Ricciardo finish still sucks though. Another team with mixed results. Russell looked very solid this season. He didn't look nervous at all being a 7-time world champions teammate. Hell, so far this season he even looked better than Lewis. George ended up with a very deserved P4 after a great start to the race. As for Lewis, let's just say the only action he's having in this race is looking at Gasly's rear wing. He struggled to get past Gasly and ended up with P13. Oh, and I imagine being lapped by Verstappen added even more to his frustration. A tough race for Lewis. I think it's an excellent result for the team. Bottas went back to his Williams form this season. He looked confident, didn't make any fatal mistakes, good pace, and ended up finishing P5. He even almost managed to close the gap between him and Russell in P4 at the last laps of the race. A bad pit stop almost ruined his race, but thankfully it didn't. Joe, however, didn't really perform that well. I think it has something to do with an accident with Gasly, but nevertheless I think he performed below standard. Ended up finishing P15 after starting from the pit lane. Overall, not a very good weekend for him. It looked perfect before the weekend started for the Ferrari fans. Coming into their home race, they're on top of both constructors and driver standings with a dominant car. But it didn't really end well for the Italian team. Carlos once again got beached, this time in the first lap. It's not really his fault, but damn, this guy have a bad luck on the race. On the bright side, he did get a contract extension, so good for him. Charles also didn't have the best weekend. Failed to get pole at the sprint, followed by a very bad start at the beginning of the race. He managed to climb into P3, but at the last laps of the race, he seems to be desperate to get past Checo, causing an error. He ended up spinning, causing him to drop a few places, and ended up finishing P6. Overall, a very bad weekend by this season's Ferrari standard. They didn't look to be doing well in quali, but when the race comes, at least one of their drivers performed. This time, it's Tsunoda. The Japanese undoubtedly had one of the best races so far in his career, finishing P7 on the race after starting from P16 on quali and P12 on sprint. As for Gasly, well, at least he managed to hold back Lewis, I guess. Not really a good race for him overall, finishing P12 in the end. By Aston Martin standard, this is a fantastic result for them. Seb looked very good, especially in quali, getting into Q3 and finishing P8 on a tricky race. He didn't make any major errors and managed to get points for the team. Stroll also did quite a decent job, had a great start, good race overall, and no big mistakes, plus a point for the team. I'd say it's quite a nice result for the team. Great job. Well, at least they managed to get P9 on one car, I guess. Kevin Magnussen looked great on quali and sprint, as well as early in the race, but then he seems to fall off. To be fair, he still managed to get P9, so at least there's something, but compared to his quali performance, he left a lot to be desired. Well, I think sometime during the race, he overworked his tires, which caused him to drop places. As for Mick, once again, another tough race for him. At the sprint stage, he looked promising, even getting into top 10 in the end, but at the race, not so much. After the contact with Alonso, he seems to struggle and ended up making some mistakes. The track condition also didn't really help him. All in all, a bad race for Mick. Once again, I think Albon did very well considering the circumstances. He qualified last because of brake problems and finishing P18 in the sprint. Nevertheless, he still managed to finish a very respectable P11 after Ocon's penalty. He didn't make any major errors and had a great pace as well. At one point, he even managed to overtake Lewis. Even more, the Williams tire strategy also worked perfectly for him. Great job by Albon. Well, it's Latifi, so what do you expect? At least he didn't cause any crash, I guess. He finished P16. Well, he did manage to keep Joe behind him for some time, but when the DRS became available, immediately loses out. Overall, a pretty decent week for the Williams, I guess. An extremely disappointing weekend for the French outfit. Fernando had a great quali session, but that's it. He went out in lap 6 after a collision with Mick, resulting in a big hole in his car's bodywork, which is very unfortunate for the Spaniard. On the other side, Esteban Ocon did pretty bad. He had a bad quali session, bad sprint, and a disappointing race. A 5-second penalty because of unsafe release just added even more to his misery. He ended up finishing P14, getting no points for the team. Overall, a weekend to forget for the French team. My best driver for this race is Yuki Tsunoda. I think he had a great performance in this race. He managed to get some overtaking action on Seb and K-Mag, resulting in a P7 finish on the end. Here's the standings after the 4th round. Anyway, yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you like it, please share, like and subscribe. See you in the next video, and yeah, have a nice day.